Good morning, first graders. This week, the week of May 11th, I'm so excited about because this week in our Zoom meeting, we're going to go on our first virtual field trip to the National Zoo, just like we were supposed to do if we were in school together. So, before we go on our awesome, fun field trip on our Zoom meeting Wednesday, I want us to think back about animal adaptations, which we talked about a lot this year in science. So I want you to think back to when we discussed animals like bats and owls, or animals that hibernate and migrate, or when we did our whole Arctic unit, which was so much fun. So just to refresh our brains, an animal adaptation is a change that an animal makes to help it survive in the wild or in its habitat. So, thinking back, we talked about three kinds of adaptations, and those could be structural, physical, or behavioral. And we talked about animals that kind of fit into those categories, which do those different things in order to help them survive. So, let's think back, and first, I'm going to show you this picture. And here we have a cactus, and we know the habitat of a cactus is in a desert, so it's hot and dry. So our cactus friend here has a structural adaptation, meaning that it fits its environment to survive. So this plant, it's not an animal, but it's a plant that has an adaptation, and our cactus doesn't get a lot of water, or it doesn't get a lot of rain in the desert, and it needs that to survive, because we know animals and humans and plants need basic things to survive. Water and food and space are some of those things. So our cactus here has some structural adaptations that allows it to soak up the water when it rains in the desert to help it survive, because it doesn't know the next time it's going to get some water. All right, moving on, we're going to take a look at this guy. We talked a lot about giraffes and what they have on their bodies, what adaptations a giraffe has to help it survive. So look at this picture. I think I see a physical adaptation in its neck. So we know our giraffes, they like to eat leaves off high trees. And in their habitats, they don't have a lot of plants to eat low on the ground. So their adaptation or change their body has made over time is their long necks to help them eat those leaves off the high trees in order to survive. And that's a physical, on its body, physical adaptation. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at these whales. And we talked a lot about these whales, and we talked about migrating, hibernating, and how when there's not a lot of food, which is a basic need of animals and humans, that animals or humans have to move to find that food in order to survive. And then that happens year after year because the animals' bodies have learned to do that to survive. So here we have our blue whales, and they're migrating to warmer waters when it gets colder so they can find some more food so that they can survive. We talked a lot about migration. I want you to think, what other animals you know that migrate in the winter so they can survive? We also talked a lot about hibernation. What animals do you remember that go to sleep for the long winter and their bodies slow down and their heart rate slowed down, and they only get up for a second to find a little food that they stored, and they stay there all winter and they're hibernating? Because, as we know, when it snows, there's not a lot of greenery or food for animals to eat, but they still need to survive. That's another adaptation. All right, guys, so as I said, I cannot wait for our Wednesday field trip to the National Zoo. There's a lot of great zoos online that have webcams, or they have live cameras of their animals if you would like to check them out. On our Zoom itinerary, I listed a few that were pretty good. Just a heads up, sometimes, as we know, animals aren't going to stay in one spot. So sometimes if you check out the cameras, the animals won't be there. And that's why I put a few different options to kind of go check out to see what animals you could see. And when you see them, I want you to think, What are their adaptations? What do they change to survive? All right, thanks guys. See you soon.